Jay Glazer of Fox Sports, UFC host and information man extraordinaire, good friend of the program. How you doing, Jay?
Doing good. Just to let you know where I'm watching the fight.
Where are you watching it?
I will be probably breaking into your house because I think you'll be somewhere else.
That's right.
I already got your security code, but even if I don't, I have as Liam Neeson said, a very particular set of skills. And
nice.
I will be, I love your linens.
Okay.
So I'll probably be just, cozied up there.
Okay.
Maybe with a friend or two and, just hanging out in probably the master suite if you're fine with that.
That's Jay. That's a little bit creepy, but look, we're that close. And back in high school, my nickname was Thread Count, Jay. So I'm all,
Thread Count.
Except it was 3 thread count. That was it. Thread count of 3. That was it.
What do you make of this fight, Jay? What do you think of this, McGregor Mayweather?
Well, first of all, look, there's a couple layers here. The first thing I'll tell anybody when it comes to combat sports, anytime you get to put your hands on another man, you can never be sure of the outcome. You never know, right? But the other end of the spectrum is it's 2 completely different sports. Boxing is a different sport than mixed martial arts, completely different. The range is different. The ounce of gloves are different. Obviously, the strikes. It's interesting because when you line up your range for boxing, which is very close to someone, that's different than a range for kickboxing or Muay Thai. And then the range for MMA is even further out than that because of takedowns. So it's a completely different sport. And what I like to compare it to is, we had trained Jared Hayne a couple of years ago from, was the best rugby player down in Australia, right, New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And he comes out here to America to play in the NFL. And he shows up. He's like, all right, what position am I going to play? I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. You're out here to train. He's like, I don't know anything about the sport. What am I going to play? So I literally called Strahan, and I go, so I got a guy here who's like the best rugby player in the world, and, these teams want him to play in the NFL, want to see what he's worth. What are we going to put him at? He's like, put him at running back. You got to know less than all the other stuff. So put him at running back. So here's the best rugby player in the world, and one of them, and he made the 49ers practice squad barely for a few weeks, and that was it. So it's a similar thing. You're playing a completely different sport. And conversely, if you take Julio Jones and you throw him over there in Australian rule football, Julio's going to struggle an awful lot. It's a completely different sport. But, man, what Conor has behind his ribcage, I don't count that guy out for anything.
No, so I guess we've come up with the tagline for this fight, McGregor Mayweather, you never know. Is that essentially what it is?
You never know. Hey, whenever you get to put your hands on another man in a violent sport, you never know what's going to happen. And what Conor's great at, you talked about it, how much he hypes you up, how much he hypes the fight up. But he is an incredibly smart fighter. He is so smart. So what he does is he gets you so hyped up. He gets you so incredibly hyped up for this fight. And what happens is as you're about to get in the ring, he continues to, kind of antagonize you and get you to think that he's coming right out after you, right? But instead, as the fight begins, when you go run across the ring at him thinking he's going to come right across the ring at you and, you're going to just go at it, he all of a sudden lays all the way back and gets very relaxed. And that's where he's a phenomenal counterpuncher. He's so incredibly calculated in everything he does.
Jay Glazer, Fox Sports, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So you being as expert at training as you are, the number of people that you have trained, how would you train Conor McGregor for this fight, Jay?
If I'm Conor, man, I make this the dirtiest, filthiest fight you can. I put the crown of my head under Floyd's chin against the ropes the entire time. I don't let him counterpunch. I dictate the pace of the fight. I dictate the range of the fight. I definitely don't fight it in Floyd's fight. I get him against the ring, those ropes, as much as I can. I put my head under his chin. I make it nasty. I rip to the body. I rip to the head. I move him around. I keep him in there. It's kind of like old Rocky. I mean, that's what I'm going to do. So, Andre Berto just, who was in our gym yesterday, who fought Mayweather, he just had a fight like that against somebody. And, that's the style, at least, that we try and train here at Unbreakable, which is kind of Randy Couture style. And we've just, Randy's helped us build it from there. But, last guy he fought, same thing. Guy just put the crown of his head under Berto's chin and just whacked away and whacked away and whacked away. And eventually you go, oh, my God, get this dude off of me. And it's just a more violent style. These are two guys who are they're great counterpunchers. Conor's not going to be able to beat the greatest counterpuncher who's ever lived counterpunching. So he's got to do something else. And he's got to make Floyd incredibly uncomfortable. I think that's the best way to do it.
Well, I wasn't just referring
when I say the crown of your head, so if you got to use your whole body as a weapon. You take that top part of your head and you stick it under someone's chin the whole time. Just leave it there and move it around on his cheek and his chin. They start getting frustrated. They start thinking about that instead of your punches. And when we are thinking about your punches, use the crown of your head. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about headbutting.
No.
Completely different.
No, I know what you're saying.
Get in there.
I wasn't just referring to the X's and O's. I'm referring to the fact that only 2 of his fights have ever gone longer than 2 rounds, and only 10 of his fights, if you put it on an actual clock, have lasted longer than 1 round of boxing. I mean, so how will that work for McGregor, who looks fit, clearly, but has never fought a fight where you've got to go for 1 round, 3 minutes, and then keep it going for as long as you can? Well,
that's the other thing. The cardio for boxing and MMA is different because MMA, it's a violent sprint, where boxing is more of a marathon. And boxing is about getting in your rhythm. Boxing is about, making sure that rhythm continues to peak as, the fight goes on. And you try to catch someone with a good shot. But, with MMA, I'll have our guys in here do 5-minute rounds, but every 20 seconds they do something else because that's how it is. You're never sitting there really and, a minute straight doing one thing and trying to get in this rhythm. It's a different kind of rhythm. It's a like I said, I kind of liken it to a violent sprint versus a marathon. So it's a different cardio where you constantly have to, your heart rate goes in all sorts of crazy ways in that cage. In the ring, you got to make sure you're relaxed and you can go for those full 12 rounds.
Jay Glazer joining me here for a couple of more minutes the day after the fight that we've been hearing whispers about actually became reality, Mayweather McGregor joining me here, Jay Glazer on the Rich Eisen Show. So, win or lose, how does McGregor go back to UFC? I know that everyone's talking about the date of this fight works on so many levels, including the fact that there's a December 30th pay-per-view that McGregor says he wants to fight in. Win or lose, how does he go back to a world where the payday isn't even close to something like this, Jay? And how does that affect other fighters in the UFC who want to get theirs?
I don't know because I don't have $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
I can't answer the question for you. An awful lot can change. Here's the one thing I'll tell you. Fighters, and actually the guy who beat Conor, Nate Diaz, said it best. Sport institutionalizes you. There's a reason why guys continue to do it over and over and over. And, there's certain guys that go, okay, I'm taking my money, I'm going. But look, George St. Pierre, he's coming back. Like I said, Couture fought forever. BJ Penn keeps doing it. Hoist Gracie did it years and years later. There's something about it where it just makes you feel different than the rest of the world. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it, every room you walk into, it gets you to think, hey, I'm not like everybody else in here. And it's just there's this art to it. So it's kind of up to Conor. If Conor's like, hey, I got my money, I'm going to do my family, I'm going to go into acting, maybe he does it. But there are certain guys where, he's the type of guy where I could line up 10 of the baddest SOBs right now, and Conor's probably like, yeah, I'll fight them all right now. I'm in. Certain people like that. They like the fight, and it's not so much the wins and losses. It's the fight itself. And that's the difference between these two guys. The biggest difference is Floyd has always made sure. I think Floyd thought greatness is being undefeated. Greatness is not being undefeated. Greatness is fighting whoever the best is, looking for that guy who maybe could possibly beat you, and you beat him. But if he beats you, then you come back and try and beat him the next time. That's what makes Muhammad Ali such a legend. That's what makes all those guys in that era of Hagler and Hearns and Leonard and Durant so legendary. They all just fought each other and looking, okay, they beat me, I'm going to try and beat them again. That's what greatness is you lose and you come back and you try and beat that guy who's supposedly superior to you.
Last one for you, Jay. Put your NFL hat on. Why does Kaepernick not have a gig right now, and do you see him getting one?
So here's the thing. There's no racial aspect here. It's just this is the fact of the NFL. And I told this to Michael Sam, and then I told it to Tebow. I told whoever it is. teams judge your circus versus your skill, right? So if your circus is up high and your skill is over here, then they tend to pull off. Man, Cam Newton's a circus, right? Odell Beckham's a circus, but their skill is so much higher, and their circus is, skill outweighs the circus. That's really what it is. And let me tell you something. Colin Kaepernick, to me, look, when Nate Boyer went out and talked to Colin, we have our MVP Foundation in here, and we had 60 veterans in our gym where we train every Thursday, including today. And Nate called back and asked what their thought was, and it was incredible how many vets said, hey, do we agree with him? Do we agree with him kneeling or sitting away from the flag? Hell no, but we fought for that right. I think that the biggest thing for Colin is, years ago when he was at his best, that dude was a monster. I remember standing in the NFC Championship game and Strahan looking at him going, this is why I don't play anymore. Look at the size of this dude. And he had that two-threat, aspect to his game. He doesn't anymore. He lost a lot of weight when he went through those surgeries. He's got to kind of get that two-threat back. I think if he gets that two-threat back, and I haven't talked to the Seahawks and why they didn't sign him, I just think, there is a circus element that comes to it, good or bad, right? It's still a circus element. And it happened to guys later on in their career, too, the Ocho Cincos and the T.O.s. And, there's been a bunch of guys where if your circus is higher than the skill, teams don't want to take a chance. And, again, I think the best thing Colin can do is kind of get that weight back on so he's that two-threat athlete again. And then, shoot, it brings that skill level back up.
Jay, thanks for the call, brother. Love chatting with you.
Man.
We'll chat soon, okay?
Appreciate it, buddy.
You got it. That's Jay Glazer.
The Rich Eisen Show. Weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
If you like that video, be sure to download our app, and I'll be sure to help the NFL figure out what a catch is.